Hey, Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens, leave the normies alone.
Leave Brittany alone!
Leave our normies alone. How is everybody doing today? Welcome to the King Leo channel. We got another great video for you today, a great bit of sociology. How you guys feeling? Face tracking is off, so it should look a lot better. How's everybody doing? Today I have to talk to you guys about the state of our normies, if you don't know what a normie is, we'll get into it, but the state of our normies in the United States, and I assume across the rest of the world, although I have not confirmed it myself, which, to paraphrase Hank Paulson, the state of our normies is not strong. They're not doing well. They're going crazy, they're gaining schizophrenia and losing everything else, and it's not good for anyone. But before we get into it, please like, comment, and subscribe, and be sure to follow the 2 rules of the King Leo channel, which are rule number 1, you do not talk about the King Leo channel, and rule number 2, you do not talk about the King Leo channel. How is everyone doing today? So today we have to talk about Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, and their cohort, people like Ian Carroll, maybe even Daryl Cooper, this kind of new media, to use a bad phrase, but a phrase that applies, this conspiracy culture that's nascent in the US, but only at the normie level because it's been around forever. Look, I know about this stuff, right? I know about conspiracy theories. I'm Hispanic. We know about conspiracy theories. We have had to deal with conspiracy theories our whole lives. We know about Operation Condor. We know about American foreign policy. We know about this kind of thing. But what's happening is that, anyone that was into conspiracy theories, maybe 10 or 20 years ago, was someone who was not a normie, clearly. They could be left or right. It didn't matter. But nowadays, normies, instead of looking at this through the likes of Ian Carroll and Tucker Carlson, they're now looking at this, and they're looking at all these conspiracy theories which they are not equipped to handle. These people are handing normies machine guns when they don't even know how to read, and this is not a good idea. It's a recipe for disaster. What do I mean? Well, first of all, what is a normie? A normie is just an average guy, just a normal American man or woman, a normal person, and normies are important. Normies have existed all throughout history, and they make life good because normies are the lubricant of society. Normies are the reason that you get to go to the grocery store and buy your food. They're the reason you get to get your driver's license renewed. They're the reason you get to book a vacation. Normies provide a valuable service, which is to lubricate the lives of other normies and people that aren't normies, such as myself. And what's been happening in the past few years is that normies have been introduced to conspiracy theories, whereas before normies would talk about what? The NBA, the NFL, pop music, Britney Spears, things like this, right? But nowadays, if you go to the grocery store, you are going to inevitably, unfortunately, because of Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens, run into a conversation where you are going to be pegged down for 20 minutes, having your ear talked off about Building 7 and a loose change talking points that were popular 20 years ago. Or I don't know, the Oklahoma City bombing and who actually did that. I'm just trying to buy this bottle of sparkling water, man. I'm just trying to get this San Pellegrino. Can you please scan it? No, bro, I can't just scan it. I gotta tell you about Timothy McVeigh. You know he wasn't the one that did it, right? And it just makes life hell. It introduces a lot of friction into our lives, and it makes it impossible for us to relate or communicate with, at minimum, with our neighbors, with our grocery clerks, with our co-workers. And this is all the fault of these conspiracy idiots like Ian Carroll and Candace Owens. These people are introducing poison into the mind of normies because normies are no longer interested in sports. In part, it's not their fault because the quality of sports, whether it be professional wrestling or the NBA, I don't know about hockey, but I assume hockey as well, all of these sports have gone downhill. They're not what they used to be. They're not as interesting. So what comes in to take their place? Normally in the past, it would be a sort of new sport, maybe some sort of fighting sport or something. But what's coming in now is conspiracy theory and politics. And we're seeing the effects of this getting worse over the past decade. where I think this started with Donald Trump. People are getting way too invested in politics, and people that would have been otherwise normal people are becoming, I don't know, Q-tards or blue anon on each side. This is not a both sidesing thing. This is the reality, is that on both sides, people are becoming impossible to talk to because they're being introduced to conspiracy theories. Let's look at an example. Medbed. Have you heard about this? Jake Tapper is telling his CNN audience that Donald Trump is getting into a bed called the Medbed that's allowing him to live forever. He is promulgating this. The president himself tweeted about it. I mean, this is crazy. It makes every Democrat you know that's well-intentioned or smart, and even some Republicans, go crazy. They go, oh my God, this is the Antichrist. This man's going to live forever. And now they have to evangelize and talk to you about it. On the other side, the most embarrassing one is probably Candace Owens, who has introduced into the normie world the fact that Brigitte Macron is a man, the First Lady of France. And this is truly embarrassing, man. It's embarrassing. This makes things so much harder to be an American. Americans are not well liked all over the world. Okay, they're not. And that's something that I've learned to live with. Most Americans that like to travel have learned to live with. But now when you land at Charles de Gaulle and you try to get into Paris and you're going through passport control, they are going to look at your passport and go, oh, you're American. And you're going to go, yes. And they're going to say, you're the people who believe that our First Lady is a man. And you have to say, yes, unfortunately, at least half the population, it seems like, does believe that your First Lady is a man. I'm sorry, I had nothing to do with it. Maybe I don't believe it myself, maybe I do. It doesn't matter. They already have a preconceived notion of you because of what these people are spreading, which is pure poison. For reference, and why I think it's important to speak out about this issue, this has happened in the past, normie brain hacking or hysteria, and it has always resulted in disaster. The most prominent example I can think of is, once upon a time, there was a king in France. His name was Louis XVI. And Louis XVI was not a popular king. This is for a lot of reasons that we can get into. You want to get through the whole rigmarole. It's about famine and all. It's debt. It's stupid. Doesn't matter, okay? But essentially what happened is that in 1789, the French people had had enough of Louis XVI. And in the spirit of the American Revolution of just a few years earlier, they decided to overthrow this man. And leading the charge was Maximilien Robespierre. And Maximilien was, if he wasn't a psycho when he started, he definitely became one. He started a cult called the Cult of the Supreme Being. He tried to get people to start using decimal time instead of the traditional clock. He did all sorts of things. He changed the calendar, just a bunch of crazy stuff that was not good for normal people. And what this resulted in is that an underrated figure of the French Revolution was Marat. And Marat was a writer who owned a newspaper called L'Ami du Peuple, the friend of the people. Sounds kind of what Tucker Carlson portrays himself as, the friend of the people. And what he would do, since he was allied with the Jacobins, is he would just write the names of anyone he did not like, anyone that he considered a political enemy, and invent a conspiracy around it in his newspaper and publish it to the masses. What would happen is that these people would subsequently be executed by guillotine in the public square, and it would be a spectacle that normies would attend. And this, maybe it was fun when it started, if you can use that word, fun. But what it resulted in was a period of time known as the Terror in French history, where people were getting guillotined every day. And it was insane. And no one was enjoying it by the end of it. Marat actually got murdered by someone who tried to stop this, but that didn't help. Everyone was getting guillotined all the time. And the normies were just, woo, cheering it on, because that's what normies do. What do you expect? They're normies. And that is not going to happen now, because there's no energy for it. There's no appetite for that. Fortunately, thank God, things have changed. But what is going to happen is what I described, a phenomenon where you're going to go to your neighbor and tell him that maybe he should mow his lawn because it's a little unkempt. And he's going to sit you down for a 20-minute conversation about how World War II wasn't exactly how it was supposed to be, and that Churchill is the real villain. And you're going to have to sit there and just listen and listen and listen. And you're not going to get any results because his mind has been hijacked and his brains have been scrambled by the likes of Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson. These people are infecting the normies with pure poison, information that, even if true, look, man, I love JFK. I think it's a great movie. I like Oliver Stone, but he should have never made that movie, man, because this is what led to this culture of QAnon and just insanity all around that is really just contributing towards a total dysfunction of society where you can no longer just interact with people in a normal way. You know, in the past, you'd go to the grocery store and at most you'd get, did you watch the game last night? And you'd say yes or no. And then they'd just say, oh, this guy's weird, he doesn't like sports. And they'd stop talking to you. But to sit down with a lecture about how they just watched the latest Daryl Cooper podcast and what they learned about Jonestown, I don't have the appetite for that, nor do I have the time, and neither do you, even if you think that this is a positive development. You know, any conspiracy theorist that thinks this is a good idea, where I think a lot of conspiracy theorists actually don't. I think a lot of conspiracy theorists are actually realizing that you really should have been careful what you wished for, because waking up the masses just meant the masses went schizophrenic. It just drives people nuts. It just drives. How can you think that this is positive? Even if you think people are waking up to the truth, what are they supposed to do with this? They can't do anything with it. They can only drive other people crazy, because guess what? I can't change anything and they can't change anything. So what does it matter if they know about Jeffrey Epstein actually being alive and not having actually died, and or maybe that he was killed by a prison guard and the missing tape? Dude. And Kash Patel's contributing to this, and Donald Trump. And I don't want to hear about how Charlie Kirk isn't dead because he escaped through a trap door, because Candace Owens told everyone on her podcast that this is the case. This is truly a sick thing that they're doing in our postmodern Baudulardian hell, which was already bad enough. But now we can't even participate in society in a way that allows you to get home without your brain being assaulted. You know, and it's interesting because this week I saw the podcast that Ezra Klein did with Ta-Nehisi Coates. I don't agree with Ta-Nehisi Coates' conclusions on several things, but I've always considered him a very talented writer. I recommend you read him just so you can see how prose is written when it's very, very well. He's a very eloquent and articulate writer and speaker. And on this podcast, Ezra Klein was telling him how he wrote a eulogy for Charlie Kirk because despite disagreeing with him on nearly everything, he was happy that Charlie Kirk engaged in politics. And what that meant is that he would go to a university and try to speak to people and convert them. And Ta-Nehisi Coates is all quiet, and then he responds and he says, Ezra, are you suggesting that the politics that we should do is posting a picket table outside of an evangelical church with a sign that says, debate me on abortion? And Ezra Klein immediately says no, because he has diarrhea in his head. But that is a good encapsulation of what's happening, where people, you see this now after Charlie Kirk's death, they want to debate all the time. They want to make you change your mind, or you change their mind. And this is not politics. This is insanity. This is schizophrenia. This is not good for you to live a normal life, because when you're debating all the time and you're debating stupid, irrelevant conspiracy theories all the time, your cortisol levels going up, you neglect your responsibilities towards your family, towards your parents, towards your children, towards your siblings, towards your girlfriend, towards your boyfriend, towards everyone around you, and then that goes higher. You neglect your responsibilities in traffic because you're thinking about Candace Owens' stupid podcast, so you don't signal, and then you cause a car accident, and then boom, there's a 3-car pileup on the side of the road, okay? These are the knock-on effects of people debating whether HIV is real because RFK Jr. says it's not. This is a conversation that was had 30 years ago. There's no reason for it to continue, and if it was unsolved then There's no way that Bob, who works at Wingstop, is going to solve it for us. He's not going to solve it. He's just going to go crazy and make life hell for me when I pick up my order. Although I would never get caught dead at a Wingstop. That's not what I eat. But that's just what I mean, is that these people, Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, Ian Carroll, leave the normies alone. We cannot have the normies go crazy. How can we live in a society when the normies go crazy? It just doesn't make sense to me, man. It doesn't make sense. These were conversations that were interesting when you were the guy at the anarchist bookshop that was imparting some sort of special knowledge on me, and I got to read an obscure print about it 20 years ago, 30 years. Now it's just on Twitter. Now it's just on Twitter where there's snuff films and conspiracy theories and porn. That's all that's on Twitter now. So what is the point? What is the point of this? I think it's really just to drive people crazy. I wouldn't be surprised if this whole thing, not to have a conspiracy of my own, is an op. It's an op to drive people crazy, to make life hell, to make it impossible for you to live a normal life, and to rupture relationships between people who would have normally been husband and wife, best friends, acquaintances, even co-workers, because they can no longer talk to each other about anything. And whoever's pushing that, man, I know that Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson have to be involved if that's the case. With that, everybody, I hope that this little rant serves you well. I hope you realize that this is not a good development in human history. That every time it's been tried, it's failed. You do not wake up the normies. You let them live a good life. With that, everybody, let me know what your favorite thing was about normies before they went crazy. I think it was when they asked me about the NBA in that period where the Miami Heat was doing really good. That was a cool time to talk to normies. But now, it's not so cool anymore. I don't want to hear about your loose change Redux take, okay? With that, everybody, like, comment, and subscribe. But please remember, rule number 1 of the King Leo channel, we do not talk about the King Leo channel. And rule number 2 about the King Leo channel, we do not talk about the King Leo channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.